When I came out to my parents, I was expecting like, oh, they're not going to be, like too either interested or happy about this, or my mom's going to worry and stress. And there was hardly any of that. In my mind, I'll tell you, I was imagining that they would be like ashamed of me. Welcome back to Open Late Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Sfandiari, and this week is another solo episode. Yeah, I'm basically bringing you, so this is the third episode in what I feel like is a trifecta of demystifying how to talk to my partner, how to start practicing non-monogamy, and then how to tell friends and family that I am in a non-monogamous relationship or that I'm polyamorous, that we're practicing or we're opening up. So that's what we're diving into today. How to tell friends and family, how to come out about this part of your life. Are you ready? I said it before, these last couple episodes have been like a workshop. So grab your pen and a notebook if you want to, because I'm going to be giving you a lot of questions and sort of things to reflect on and journal on as well. Of course, this is not one size fits all, but this is what has worked for me and I feel like has worked for people that I've supported on their journey. And I'd love to just give you a quick note about, privilege and safety and security. And we all have these different lived experiences as humans. And so not every single person has had the same experience that I have, where I've had, safety and security and acceptance in my journey of coming out, at least with my friends and family who know me and love me. I've also never been at risk for losing my job because I work for myself, or losing my housing because I own my own home. I'm not going to be ostracized out of a community because I don't, frequent a church. And that's not the case for many people who are listening. So I see you, I hear you, the people that write into me. And I hope that what I share can help you on your journey some way. Be able to live your truth and live it as publicly as you want to. So with that being said, let's move into it. Some people might just want to bring their new significant others home for the holidays. Like if that was me and, Posh and I were going home for Thanksgiving, which is, just in a couple of weeks, we might just bring home, a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something, and just wait for there to be shock and awe, like if we hadn't come out yet. And maybe that's what some people want to do. But I highly recommend not doing that. The last thing you want to do is sort of create a situation where people feel thrown off guard. And I'm being funny. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to do that. So the best thing to do is to set a time, really plan it, think about it. When would be the most low risk time, right? When do people feel comfortable, feel at ease? And maybe you want to let the person that you're coming out to know ahead of time. Like, I have something really important that I want to share with you. And you can bring that information with whatever context you want. Like, this is something I'm celebrating. This is something I'm excited about. Or you can be, say this is something like I've sort of kept close to the vest, but I feel like it's time to start sharing. And you can call out the elephant in the room if you want. This is something that I've been hesitant to share because I'm worried how it might be received. If it feels like a relationship where you might be judged and you feel like you have that kind of respect and communication, you can say, I'm worried that, you might judge me for this. You can say, I'm worried that you might, in my mind, I feel like you might judge me for this, but logically, I know you're not going to. It's just a fear that I have, right? You can start to sort of set the stage with your language. And so that's something that I think is really important. I waited a really long time to come out to my friends and family. My best friends knew kind of earlier on. And when I say that, it was like, 2 or 3 women in my life. And I didn't share with my family for nearly 5 years. And when I did, they were all so receptive. mean, not one person made me feel uncomfortable or shamed me. And I know I'm very blessed for that. I have incredible parents and brothers and sisters. But for other people, that's not the case. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, I could come out to this person, but not that person, and I know my friends would accept me and support me, so go there first. Choose the low-hanging fruit, if you will, because it will feel really good to start to have a community of support around you before you start coming out to maybe some of those more challenging relationships in your life. So I would say starting there. Before you do, of course, I'm always going to give homework. I would ask yourself, how am I going to feel if the reaction is not ideal? If I feel judgment, if I experience rejection, is that going to cause me to feel that way about myself? So really hone in on how much you love and accept and appreciate and approve of your own self before having these conversations. And it doesn't mean that you can't have these conversations and come out if you're not in like the place of like, oh, I got the most self-love on the planet, like nothing's gonna rock my ship. You don't have to be there, but really understand yourself and your true nature so that you can be in a position to like self-soothe in a really nice way. Like, I feel like there might be rejection coming with this one, with this conversation. So how can I best care for myself? How will I feel? And maybe create some affirmations around it. Okay, if this person can't accept me for who I am, I know that I have these beliefs about myself to fall back on and affirm that I am loved, I am beautiful. I am worthy of love and acceptance. I am completely normal. My sexuality and loving expressions or sexual expressions or way of relating that I prefer, has nothing to do with how worthy I am as a human. In fact, I like to think that if you can be love and receive love from many people, that makes you pretty fucking great. So know that I'm in your corner. And yeah, really understand that for yourself. And rejection is not the worst thing in the world. It can be a big cause or a catalyst for your own growth. Because when you have to accept yourself on a deep level because others aren't, you get to know yourself more, find ways, like I said, to self-soothe and to reparent your inner child. There's no greater gift. So put yourself in these risky situations because the payoff is really big. I mean, as long as like your physical health isn't at risk, which, we spoke to earlier. Okay, moving right along here. Don't rehearse the drama. I wrote because I have notes for myself. And as I was just saying, like, think about who are going to be the easier people to come out to, the more accepting people in your community, and think about the people that might be more challenging, right? That might reject you or that might have, big opinions or judgments, and to understand what that might be. I told you to think about that, right? But the flip side of that is don't rehearse the drama. Don't create something in your mind that's much scarier, bigger, dramatic than what it actually might be in real life, right? Because if you listen to me or you follow me, you know that I believe we create everything. The mind is so powerful, and we're all energy. So the more you focus on something, the more you're going to create that thing. And when it comes to this conversation, if you're rehearsing the doom and the gloom, the dead and the dread, and how, you're going to be outcasted from your family because of this, you're literally putting energy into creating this for your future. And instead, we can think about how this can be a liberating experience. It can be magical. Like, it can bring more connection than you've ever imagined. I feel like, when I came out to my parents, I was expecting like, oh, they're not going to be, like too either interested or happy about this, or my mom's going to worry and stress. And there was hardly any of that. Like, of course, my mom, she has her little like things that she's still like, I just don't understand it, or like I'm confused. But in my mind, I'll tell you, I was imagining that they would be like ashamed of me, that I would cause them some level of like concern or frustration, or, I don't know. And it wasn't even about like me living this way, but it was also like, I'm going to have this podcast and my life is going to be very public. And I was building it up to be, something that it wasn't in my head. And I waited so long to come out to them. That was another thing. I'm like, oh, they're going to feel like I've been living this way and like not being honest, because it was such a long time. None of that. And maybe they thought those things or felt that way, but they didn't share it with me. They were very loving and accepting. And it was quite beautiful to feel like they know me now more completely. They know this side of me that I haven't been able to share with them. And not just my mom and dad, but my whole family. It was like this weight was lifted off of my shoulders. And I had that same experience when I started to do this podcast. Like, I've got nothing left to sort of hide or cover up about myself, which I didn't realize the mental gymnastics that were happening in my mind until I fully came out to everyone. It's been so liberating to just be myself and to realize that, like, on some level, it was because I didn't fully accept me for who I am that I didn't come out right away. And that's like a whole other podcast episode. But I just want to share that if you're thinking about this and you're like me and you love to meditate and to manifest, you can put yourself in a state where you can manifest the exact situation and responses that you want. Rehearse them. Sit down, close your eyes, take some deep breaths, get into a state, and just imagine in your mind how you want these conversations to go. And really feel it and feel into all the senses. Like, what are you creating? What are you wearing? Where are you? What's the setting like? Have you just finished a beautiful meal together? Or are you, walking in a park, having this conversation with your dad? What kind of sounds do you hear in the background? And bring the entire scenario to life for yourself. You would be amazed at what you can manifest when you do it this way. So I would say that, and also on the same vein, set an intention. I love intentions. Intentionality is a huge part of my life. It's a huge part of my work. And I think that it can be a big part of your coming out story, of your coming out journey. My intention, looking back, I don't know that I set one, because this was a couple of years ago, other than like, I just don't want them to be upset. Like, as if I could manage or control someone else's feelings. Newsflash, you cannot. So don't let that be your intention. But now that I've grown up a bit, I realized that when I share this part of my life with people, before there was a podcast and I started doing it more regularly, my intention was to get closer to them, to build more connection with the people that I love the most and show them all of me, right? And so that doesn't have to be your intention, but I think setting one can really help you navigate the entire conversation. So the next little point that I have is to go a bit deeper into the fact that you want to get closer. And like I said, it doesn't have to be your intention, but I think when you go to actually have this conversation, right now that we've reflected and we've prepared, and you're ready to have it, one of the best things you can do is tell the other person, the reason that I want to share this with you is because I want to deepen our relationship. I want to be closer to you. And I feel like by not telling you this, I've created distance. That was true for me. And it's likely true for you, because the more information that we have about each other, the more we can find commonality or compassion or empathy, right? So tell them, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want to better our relationship in some way, get closer to you, feel more connected. I want you to know me better. And this is like becoming a big part of my life, or this has been a big part of my life, or this is something I'm curious about and I would love your support. I want to bring you along on the journey. It's going to be really fun. It might be scary. It might cause, me to examine myself. I might have heartbreak, and you're one of my best friends. So I want you along for the ride. Are you down? you know? So I think that, if you communicate that that's your goal and that their relationship is so important to you, your relationship with them is important to you, you can't go wrong, right? Setting the stage that way, because it really invites them in rather than, saying, this is this thing and I want to just tell you and give you this information. You can do with it what you want. It's like, no, I'm telling you this so that we can come together. Yeah. So one of the last things I want to share is it's okay to not have all the answers. One of the reasons that I also didn't come out for such a long time is because I felt like there'd be so many questions that I didn't know how to respond to. My non-monogamy journey, as I imagine many people listening, has had so many chapters and peaks and valleys and, revolutions and, renaissances. Like, it's been so beautiful. And over the years, we've not practiced just one kind. And I've always been like shape shifting in this way. And so I felt like, oh, if I tell somebody I'm this, but then I change, it's going to be a whole thing, right? Or, they're going to ask me questions that I don't quite have the answers to yet because I haven't figured it all out. It's not a great reason to not share your life with somebody, and it's okay to say, I don't know. I kind of equate it to like you start a new job, right? And you like tell a friend about it and they ask you 1,000,001 questions. Well, how's it going to be? What's the work environment like? What are you going to do if this pops up? And you're like, I barely just started. I'm not really sure yet. I'm still getting the lay of the land. Like, it's okay to not have it all figured out. That's like what life's for. If we had everything all figured out, like what would we do? Things would be boring, honestly. And so saying I don't know is something I was always really uncomfortable with. I felt like I had to have all the answers. And I just had this conversation today. Actually, I did an episode with Anne Hottership, and we talked about, in the realm of sex education and like having kids one day and wanting to give them like a really good experience and to give them information and respect them enough to know that they're also people with curiosities and desires and their own whole personality, right? And she reminded me, like, it's actually okay to be like, hey, I don't know, but there are these other educators who are qualified educators, who are teachers, or who have written this book, or who have this workshop or this class. And I want to make sure you have these resources. So in the vein of your non-monogamy journey and coming out, it's not only okay, but it's also totally normal to not have all the information because you probably didn't write a book on non-monogamy yet. So saying, I don't know, and reminding your friend that like, it's okay that you don't know and that it's not dangerous or scary that you don't know, because that's usually where those questions come from, right? People are asking us because they want us to have it all figured out, because they're concerned that we're going to get hurt in some way. And that, they're going to be there to pick up the pieces, or they just really don't want to see that happen. Or, they haven't done a lot of work on themselves. So change in their outer environment with friends that they feel like are stable, that they can depend on to sort of present or show up or act a certain way and relate a certain way to them, that might change. And that, that foundation that they have is a little rocky when you start to make these big life decisions or explorations. Reminding people, hey, this is a journey for me, one that I'm really curious about, one that I'm really excited about. And I'm not telling you this because, I do have all the answers. I'm sharing this with you so that you can be a part of my journey. so that you're sort of involved in this part of my life. And yeah, I might need your support if things fall apart. But what's the difference in things falling apart, maybe in my romantic life or my intimate life, than things falling apart with my job or school or parenting, or, if I'm caregiving for a family member? We don't need to place our romantic relationships or partnerships in a box that's like so untouchable, that we're not allowed to deviate from the, heteronormativity. Newsflash, we can design everything. We can customize every single thing in our lives. I mean, we get our groceries delivered to our front doors these days, many of us. So why aren't we designing our relationships? And so this is just a little bit of what you can share if you're met with, oh, but like, isn't this really risky? And I'm worried about you. And this seems, really irresponsible. It's like, no, this is a part of my life that I want to explore and that I am exploring. And I'm telling you because I want to get close to you, not because, I need the polyamory police on my front door. So stand up for yourself in that way. And remember, it's okay to not have all the answers, and it is really okay and even liberating, as I found out in my chat with Anne today, to say, I don't know, but hey, let's find out together. So that's one of the last things I wanted to share. And I'll leave you with this. Many people that you share this with are going to probably have their minds blown. And some of the people that you share this with might say, oh my God, me too. I've been so interested in this, or like, I've read this article, or, you might even find that your friends are closeted non-monogamous as well. But for the majority of people, they're probably going to be like, what, where, how, why? I need more information. And in that case, give them more information, so that they can be a more supportive part of your journey, right? Share this podcast with them. Share articles that you found about non-monogamy that you feel like can really support other people, just understanding the basics, the foundations, right? The main things, like what is compersion, right? Share the dictionary that we have with them. My really good friend Irene Morning just wrote a book called The Polyamory Paradox. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. In the work of other, content creators who are also exploring non-monogamy, like Elizabeth Cunningham or Dr. Tara from Love Bites. I can go on and on. If they're looking for, someone that they could resonate with who's a parent, like if you're a parent and you're not following Remodeled Love or La Vida Loca Sawyers, like these are all really great resources aside from, checking out Open Late, that you can share with your friends, with your family, with, your coworkers, if you're so brave, and say, look, I don't have all the answers yet, but these are some people who are practicing and who share and who educate around this stuff. And so if they're looking for it, you can share this information that way. One of the last things I'll say is ask about their life. Once you've gotten this like off your chest or off your back or out of your belly, wherever, ask your friends, your family, if you're comfortable too, how their intimate relationship is, or relationships, right? Because it's not always just like with our lovers. It's like, how are you being supported by your own community, right? By your own friends and family. And since you shared this with them, and this is such a like piece of your heart, say like, is there anything at all that you want to share with me that I can get to know you better, that I can love you more deeply, right? That can bring us closer together. I think it's so valuable to have these like deep, connected conversations that are not surface level, that are not small talk. If you know me, I'm like, ugh, like I'm allergic to small talk, which isn't always great because like I find that I have very little patience for people who have small talk, and it gets me into trouble because like, many people have social anxiety. I mean, I have a little bit of it, but it comes in a different form. I feel like when people have social anxiety, sometimes they try to make small talk, and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. That being said, I don't know why I went on that tangent, but this is like a way for you to get closer to people. So as you're offering this information about yourself, find out if there's something that they want to share with you. Since you created such a vulnerable space, you'd be surprised at what people don't share because they're afraid of being judged or, being rejected as you are. It goes both ways. So that since you created that space, invite them in, invite them to play also in that space. Last thing I'll say, and I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again sometime, have the conversation sooner than later. Of course, prepare yourself, use all of these cool, reflections and tools that I've given you, but don't wait, don't sit on it. I promise you, the drama, right, that you're rehearsing, or the story that you're cooking up in your head about how this conversation is going to go so bad and it's going to blow up in your face, is way worse than what will actually happen for the majority of us, right? I mean, there's going to be some outliers. But the more you rehearse it in your head of what's going to go wrong, the more you spend time doing that, the more you're creating suffering for yourself that doesn't have to be, right? So I'm with you. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, we have all these resources. We have Open Talks, which is our free WhatsApp chat community that you can join. There's a link in the bio, and you can get coaching and advice from me. I'm in there. There's also a lot of other cool people who are, solid in their non-monogamy in there as well, who help me co-coach. And there's also just a ton of people who are just starting out on this journey, who are sharing their insights and their experiences. And you can learn from them. So I welcome you. I appreciate you. And just thank you for listening. Remember, take a moment to rate and review the podcast, because those things help more people find me. And also, you can leave questions that I'll then answer on the podcast, or that I'll read. Actually, sometimes I'll read the questions, or I'll read the comments or the reviews on the show. So if you want to be featured, or if you have a question that's burning, let me know on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcast. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you next week.